welcome back PetaPixel viewers. It is Chris Niccolls here and we're out enjoying the last of the beautiful Alberta fall colors. We've brought a nice lens to do it too. We've got the new Sigma 10-18 f2.8. This thing is tiny and I can't wait to go use it. I'm using this on a Sony a7R5 and I know that might seem strange at first, but we just don't have access to like a Sony a6700 right now or something like that. But this lens is coming out on L mount, it's coming out on Sony E mount, it's coming out on Fujifilm X mount, and here in cropped APS-C mode, I'm getting 26 megapixels. That's gonna be very comparable to a Sony Alpha camera APS-C or a Fujifilm XT camera, for example. So I think it's gonna be a good test. Now Sigma calls this the world's smallest ultra-wide APS-C zoom with an f2.8 aperture, and I find that hard to disagree with because it is absolutely small and tiny. 67mm filter thread, only 255 grams. I mean, that's an eighth of a Noct or a quarter of a Plena, however sounds lighter to you. Now, because it's such a small lens, there's not a lot of space for anything else on here. So in order to make the lens even smaller, they've gone with a hood now, which comes with the lens, and it's a different design. It's kind of like a push-on design, just locks in place, small twist to remove it. I mean, it's a little bit fiddly. It seems to work okay. I do find, though, that I'm still used to wanting to twist it to really make sure it's locked in place, and that's not necessary. The zoom ring here is pushed right up against the lens hood, and at least it is nice flare to it, so you don't have to look at it to find it. Your fingers will naturally go against that bump and then you can start zooming. Otherwise, you got a manual focus control ring here, but nothing else. There's no AF/MF selector switch, and depending on what body you're using, that could be quite annoying. The lens itself, not necessarily sealed, but they did seal the rubber lens mount here around the base against dust and moisture. Okay, so I'm gonna get a close-up shot here, this little water droplet on this leaf. Nice. So this is actually a very versatile macro lens. I mean, first off, it does its best work at 10mm for macro. I'm getting about 4.6 centimeters working distance, which from the front element means I'm basically on top of my subject. I mean, I'm focused on this rock right here and I'm almost touching it. But that being said, I actually get good close-up capabilities, about 1 to 4 life-size reproductions. So especially given the ultra-wide nature of this, I can really push that background far away. It makes for some dramatic close-up shots. So we've got this beautiful bright sunny day, and this is really the kind of light I was hoping for to test a lens like this. I mean, you know, the fall colors are popping, the sky looks rich, but also it lets me test things like flare, sunstars, and how well this lens handles ghosts. So first off, flare. Sigma always does a great job of preventing flare. The coatings are good. I'm not seeing a lot of washed out areas, even if the light source is in the shot or just outside the frame. It's doing a good job there, but we are getting ghosts. Now when you stop down, you can see them here. They're not too bad. Most lenses will have some ghosting, especially when you stop down. But even shooting wide open here, I'm getting these kind of distinct cross within a circle patterns, like a hot cross bun. And although they're not very vivid, you know, they're quite translucent, quite ghost-like really, they're still prominent and distracting. So I also want to test sunstars because a lens like this you're going to use for a lot of landscapes, and on a day like today I like getting sunstar shots, you know, through the trees, through the yellow leaves and stuff like that. But unfortunately the sunstars here aren't great. I mean, you can see they're just kind of bland, they're broad, you don't get distinct points. It's really kind of messy. So if I was going to shoot this for landscapes, although the flare resistance is good, I would really be careful stopping down around sunlight to avoid ghosts, and you're not going to get great sunstars out of it anyways. So of course on a lens this compact and this affordable, we're not going to have an advanced linear motor. We've got a stepping motor in here, but it's silent, it's smooth, it's quick enough. I mean, we don't have large glass elements to move, and so focusing from closest to infinity, it's still very snappy. I just don't see in a situation where the stepping motor is going to be a disadvantage. Okay, let's talk about bokeh next. Now I know on ultra-wide landscape lenses like this, you'll often be shooting stop down, you know, it's not really gonna be an issue, lots of depth of field, but I still like to test it. I mean, this is an f2.8 lens, and if you get close, you can get quite shallow depth of field, and there'll be some situations where you might get specular highlights, like in these examples where I got sun glinting off this braided water. So shooting at f2.8, you can see here a fair amount of cat's eye coming quite close to the center of the image, kind of gives you a swirly effect I actually don't mind it at all. Now when we stop down the lens a bit, remember that we don't have 13 or 14 aperture blades making an almost perfect circular opening like you would on a very high-end pro lens. We have 7 aperture blades here, and you can see when stopped down a fairly polygonal shape in the specular highlights. As well, they have a very distinct soap bubble effect, almost a solid ring around it. So I wouldn't call the specular highlights soft, smooth. They're quite distracting. That being said, I'm actually quite surprised how nice the transition is from in focus to out of focus areas and back again. That's actually quite smooth. I like the soft blur that I'm getting in the background. I just don't love the specular highlights. So after climbing up that hill at my age, I realized how important breathing is, how desirable it is for me to be able to breathe, but actually how little I want my lenses to breathe. And lens breathing is just that field of view changing as you focus the lens from closest focusing to infinity. The Sigma 10 to 18, as you can see here in the example, actually doesn't breathe very much at all. That's a really nice thing. If you want to use this lens for video applications, the lightweight makes it awesome on a gimbal. I think for vlogging would be really nice, and you're not going to get any of that weird field of view shifting in the background. So, you know, the manual focus ring is even nice enough. Whew. All right, let me rest now. All right, let's talk about sharpness next. So first off, starting in the center at 10 millimeters, shooting at f2.8, you can see here the center is decently sharp. When stopping down to f5.6, I noticed a contrast improvement. Didn't really notice that much more resolution. Now we go to the corners at 10 millimeter, again at f2.8. It's a little bit soft when you're specifically focusing in the corners. Stopping down to f5.6 helped, but they never really sharpened up that much. Now looking at 18 millimeters, this is where I think the Sigma 10 to 18 does its best work. So looking at the centers here at f2.8, I definitely notice it's a little bit sharper in the center than at 10 millimeters. Same story though, when I stop down to f5.6, I get more contrast. I'm not really noticing any improvement in sharpness, but it's already good at 18 millimeters. Looking at the corners here at f2.8, better than at 10 millimeters, you know, still a little bit soft. In this case, stopping at f5.6 does help the corner sharpness a bit when you're shooting at 18 millimeters. So we've had a really fun day down there by the river, beautiful colors, but now we find ourselves next to a busy highway, so pardon the noise, but Jordan really liked the background here. I had a really good time with the Sigma 10 to 18. I mean, the strengths here, just that it's a fairly affordable lens, is certainly sharp enough, and it's very compact. I also love the versatility of being able to do nice close-ups riverside with this little lens. But in order to get it so small, I can't help but feel that Sigma's had to make some compromises to image quality. Still, I think overall, if you are looking for an affordable, compact little travel APS-C zoom for ultra-wide, this is a really nice choice. Now, if you're willing to give up a millimeter on the wide angle to get a little bit more in the telephoto, if you're willing to go with a slightly larger lens and pay a little bit more money, I do feel like the Tamron 11 to 20 f2.8 basically does a similar kind of photography, but does it just a little bit better. Just a little bit nicer sharpness, a little bit nicer sunstars, a little bit nicer image quality overall. But you've got two awesome choices here if you're looking for an ultra-wide zoom. Thanks for joining us. Please do leave your comments below. We always appreciate that. Like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click that notification bell. And while you're at it, why not listen to our podcast? You can watch it here on the channel, or you can check it on all your favorite podcasting apps. Just search for the PetaPixel podcast and leave your comments below, and they might even end up on the show. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon with more episodes of PetaPixel.